Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg. Today I am doing a response video to CriminOlly and BooklessPete. CriminOlly did a video talking about how he is going to be giving up the Amazon infrastructure for reading his ebooks, even though he's been using Amazon and Kindle for a long time. BooklessPete did a response to CriminOlly. I want to talk to both of them about my experience in reading ebooks on Kindle, other devices, and working in bookstores. I'm taking this because I want to talk about how books were once bought and sold before the Kindle. When I was at university during the 80s, as my senior year, I got a part-time job working as a cashier at Crown Books. Crown Books was a small bookstore chain, mostly around the Washington, D.C. metro area. They were a discount book chain, and the tagline for Crown Books was, "If you paid full price, you didn't buy it at Crown Books." Every book at Crown Books was discounted, and your competition at the time was B. Dalton or Barnes and Noble, and maybe some independent bookstores. Well, I eventually got promoted to assistant manager at the Crown Books in Bethesda, Maryland. And after working there about 4-5 years, Borders Books came to town. Now, Borders Books was an independent bookstore chain based out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And yes, they were an independent bookstore chain at the time. They were owned by Tom and Louis Borders, and they branched out of the Michigan area and placed their store in Rockville, Maryland. And let me just say, that bookstore was an extreme hit. You had many people going there buying a lot of books. And I eventually jumped ship from Crown Books and went to work at Borders. But what happened is, a couple years later, Crown Books was making some bad business decisions, and Borders was encroaching on their business because Borders sold a lot more books than Crown Books. And Crown Books eventually went out of business. Now, did they go out of business because of their bad business decisions in the corporate office and corporate infighting among the owners? Or was it the competition that drove them out? Probably a combination of the two. But Crown Books did go bankrupt, and Borders was eventually sold to Kmart and became a real corporate bookstore that spread across the country. Flash forward a few years, I eventually quit working at Borders, but then comes along Amazon in 1986, 1987, and Borders made some bad business decisions, and Amazon started slowly creeping into their sales. Borders eventually went out of business. It went bankrupt. Again, the question is, did they go bankrupt because of bad business decisions or from competition from Amazon? Again, likely a combination of both. But I'm telling this because it shows the predatory nature of bookstores and book selling, and that businesses change when circumstances change and people change alliances. I used to be a loyal customer of Crown Books, even before I was an employee. And then I switched over entirely to Borders Books, even though books cost more at Borders. And now both of those are out of business. I started reading ebooks before the Kindle. I had a small handheld device called a PDA, and the main app or program was Microsoft Reader. Microsoft Reader used to be the dominant format in ebooks. Microsoft Reader is now defunct. Amazon used to sell ebooks for the Kindle reader. And you would order your book from Amazon, and you got an email saying your book will be ready within 24 hours. It was not instantaneous. But again, Microsoft Reader is now defunct. And I stopped reading ebooks for a while. I started with the Amazon Kindle with the first Kindle ever offered in 2008, and I have never looked back. Amazon has always made it very easy to buy ebooks. Originally, you could buy them directly, or you still can buy them directly from the Kindle. They used to have a 3G connection, so you could buy a book anywhere in the world you wanted to. They did get away with that 3G. But flash forward again to nowadays. I have a number of Kindles. I have my Kindle Paperwhite. I use this mostly now for travel or when I'm waiting in like car dealerships. And I do that because I have my Kindle Scribe, which is a much nicer reading device, but it's really not as portable as the Paperwhite. I have an Android device, which I can load a Kindle app if I chose to. I have not done that yet. I do have another program called Moon and Reader to read other public domain and non-DRM'd ebooks. I have my iPad, which does have the Kindle app. So I have a lot of options of reading ebooks. And again, my number one preferred method right now is my Kindle Scribe, and my second is my Paperwhite. Now, a lot of the complaints that Ollie brought up is that even though there's not supposed to be a whole lot of advertising on your Kindle, there sort of is, because when you load up your Kindle, as you can see, it has books available for sale. All I'd have to do is click on that title and buy that book. It makes buying books super easy. They also put books on deep discount. I call this Kindle crack. When there is a book that you want that's on sale for $1.99, I always go ahead and I just buy it for maybe someday. At $1.99, I'm not super concerned if I never get around to reading it. But as Ollie pointed out, once you buy more than 1,000 of these books, you look back at your cost and say, okay, I just spent $2,000. It's usually over a few years, but $2,000 is $2,000. It's a little too easy to buy Kindle crack books on my Kindle. But that is not Amazon's fault. That is my fault for not being able to resist that deal. Now, another thing that I can blame on Ollie is the Read What You Own challenge. That's where we challenge ourselves to read books that we already own before buying another book. I have participated for 3 years, and it has cut down my Kindle crack buying quite a lot. It used to be that whenever I saw it, I'd just buy it. Now, after 3 years, even if I see a Kindle crack deal, I'm not as willing to go ahead and just push that buy button. I often look at my local library and see if they have the ebook version available. Because if they have the ebook version available, I can just borrow that book from the library. Okay, maybe there's going to be a wait time for some books. Most of the books that I like are a bit older, so it may not always have a wait. And if there's a huge need to read it right away, I just go ahead and buy it. So again, that's not a huge deal. Some people like to complain that just Amazon is too big of a business, too dominant, too much of a monopoly. And yes, Amazon is very dominant in the market. They are a predatory business. But businesses in America are predatory, and businesses put other businesses out of business for a number of reasons. Cue up my initial talk: Crown Books and Borders Books, both now defunct. Can you absolutely blame Amazon for making those bookstores defunct? I don't think so. There is a good argument that they contributed, just as Borders contributed to the downfall of Crown Books. Amazon probably contributed to the downfall of Borders. That is just the nature of business in America. And I can't get myself too upset. Now, as CriminOlly mentioned, I do think Jeff Bezos has way too much money for any one person in this world. But that is not a business fault. That is the fault of our government, that our government does not want to control businesses. Maybe it should, but that is a subject for a different video, and to be honest, probably a different channel altogether. So, while I don't necessarily like the fact that Amazon is a big business, a monopoly business, and Jeff Bezos has way too much money, I am not going to get myself too overly concerned, because what happens when a better model comes along? Now, does Amazon have bad business practices in the background that I don't know about? Maybe, maybe not. But if another company comes along and creates a more enticing bookstore, or I should say, digital bookstore experience, Amazon may go the way of Crown Books and Borders Books. I would be upset with that because I literally have thousands of Kindle ebooks. I would not be happy if Amazon went out of business. Ollie also mentioned that it is possible to remove DRM from your Kindle books. That is the little programming device that says this ebook can only be read on Kindle devices. It is fairly easy to do. It is not legal. Ollie said it is legal to remove DRM in his country. I'm not saying if it is or it isn't, but what I'm saying is that removing DRM in the United States is currently illegal, as I understand it. Are you going to get in trouble if you remove DRM from your personal ebooks and use them for your own personal usages? Maybe, maybe not. It's a lot like coming across a red light at a deserted intersection. Can you stop, look all ways, and go through that red light? Yeah, probably you can get away with it. Unless you don't. You cannot go to the court and said it was safe. The police officer says you ran a red. You're guilty. If you remove DRM from your ebook, you are guilty. And you have to understand the benefits and risks for yourself. For me, I don't think the benefits outweigh the risk, even though I don't think there's much of a risk at this time. I have never been put in a position where I have bought a DRM'd Kindle ebook and not been able to read it on my Kindle devices. So I think that's a bit of a non sequitur. I would not personally do it, but that is someone else's choice. Another thing people talk about is, do you really own your ebooks when you buy them? The answer to that is yes and no. Technically, Amazon does have the ability to zap any book from your Kindle if it chooses to do so. My theory is they're not going to do so without a really strong case. Early on, there was a boy who bought a copy of 1984 from the Kindle store. It turned out that that was a pirated copy. And what Amazon did was they zapped that from his Kindle and refunded his money. Now, the boy had been taking extensive notes on that Kindle, and he got really upset that all of his notes were lost. There are a bunch of lawyers involved, and Amazon finally came up with a policy says, if you buy the book legally, when we think the book is legally available to you, we will not take it away from you afterwards. We will just remove it from the store so no further person can purchase it. It doesn't mean they can't do it in the future. It's just that I don't think Amazon is going to put a whole lot of effort into doing that. Another question is, what happens when a book goes out of print? What happens is that that book is no longer available in the Kindle store, but you are still able to download it, just like you would be able to download that illegal copy. Another question a few people have raised is, what happens if a publisher changes the book? The issue is like Roald Dahl. About a year ago, the publisher made some very heavy changes to the text of Roald Dahl that many people did not want. Their worry was that one day you would have the old text, and the next day the Kindle would update you to the new text. That, again, probably would not happen, because in order to make those kind of updates, they have to re-release the book. And when they re-release the book, essentially the book that you first purchased goes out of print. It is still available for you to download. If you wanted to buy the new version of Roald Dahl, you could. Now, Kindle does send certain kinds of updates. They send basically text fixes, like there's a typo in the text, and they can occasionally fix those typos. Every now and then, there are more serious mistakes that they fix. I doubt they would fix the boulderization copies. That's just a personal opinion. So I'm going to stick with Kindle for now. Yes, there are other places that I can purchase ebooks from. There are other devices, much like the Kindle, which in a technical specifications may be very close and very nice. I am sure there are other versions of the Scribe about this size, which would suit me very nicely. But I would not be able to, well, at least on some devices, I would not be able to read my Kindle books. Other devices are more open and you can download the Kindle app, so I would be able to keep those Kindle books. And maybe I will. Even though I really like my Kindle Scribe, I think it is a bit overpriced. Overpriced comes from the fact that it has this handwriting recognition with this fancy pen on the side. I don't use the fancy pen very often. So I would be open to buying a different kind of ebook device that could run the Kindle app that is not a Kindle. I doubt I would go over to another system altogether, such as Kobo, where I'd have to start rebuying my books in the Kobo format. And that's about all I want to say. Who knows what will happen in the future with Amazon? They may get more drastic in how they police their books. Maybe they will start removing books that are just gone out of print and not allowing you to download them. It's a future that I cannot say one way or the other will happen. But until that time, I still will continue to read and enjoy my Kindle books on all my devices. Your mileage may vary. Thank you for watching, and keep on reading.